Okay guys, good to see you. I thought I'd do it this way this time, make it a bit more interesting. Hopefully you can see the screen alright. It might not be perfect, but you've got your slides that I've set on Doddle as well, and your worksheets there as well, so hopefully this will be a little bit more interesting than just having my voice over the top. Let's see how it goes, yeah? Okay, so today's lesson, we're looking at training thresholds. You might have heard this phrase before, sometimes. You might have heard the word training zones. It's pretty much the same thing. So what zones you're working in. Okay, so we're going to look at the two today, and it actually links to respiration as well, because two of the main zones we're going to look at today are to do with respiration and which types of exercise we'll be using anaerobic or aerobic respiration. So have a look at the slide here at the hook. Some important questions here that might set you up for the rest of the lesson. Go ahead and pause the video, answer the questions on the first slide, and then re-pause it while you're ready. So, resting heart rate is the number of times your heart beats per minute while you're at rest. So, you could argue now, I'm not at rest because I'm stood up. So, usually at rest you take when you're sitting down, not when you're lying down though, because your heart pumps differently when you are lying down. So usually we test it when you're sitting down, and that's your resting heart rate, that's your base heart rate. And usually we know already, the fitter you are, the lower your heart rate, because your heart is stronger and doesn't need to work as hard to pump that blood around the body. Okay, working heart rate, this one's a little bit more self-explanatory. Working heart rate is your heart rate during exercise or during when your body is moving. Okay, so usually it will be, for example, when we're going out for a run, or when you're running during netball, football, hockey, whatever, your working heart rate is when you are doing the exercise. Recovery heart rate, this is another really good key indicator of how fit someone is, because the faster you get back down to your resting heart rate, the fitter you are, because your heart and your body and your muscles are going to recover much more easily from the exercise that you've just done. I'm going to look at that today. And then your maximum heart rate, we've worked this out before. It's the simple formula, the Carvenan formula, the simplified version is 220. Don't ask why it's that number. Scientists have just worked it out. 220 minus your age. Okay, it's quite a general one. Some people argue against it, but that's the one we need to know for the time being. So 220 minus your age. So your guy's maximum heart rate will either be 206 or 207. Okay, and then we use that figure later on in the lesson. So remember that one. Okay, because I'm getting on a bit now. My maximum heart rate is around about 188 beats per minute. Okay, so you can see the difference there and who's capable of what. Okay, so we're going to look at working heart rates to start off with. In fact, we're going to look at all the heart rates on this slide really. What I'd like you to do is just play the video. Now this is a video, I'm not going to play it. I'd like you to play the video on your PowerPoint. If it doesn't work for whatever reason, okay, you could just go onto YouTube, type in 400 meter race, and just click on one that comes up, and you can use that. It doesn't have to be this one here. So have a look at it, and what you need to do is look for these positions here in a race, not positions, sorry, moments in a race. Okay, and then you're trying to match these heart rates to these moments in a race here. You might actually be able to do it without the video, but I'd really recommend watching that video because it really gives you the insight and the knowledge and will help you with questions later on, not necessarily in this lesson but in other lessons as well. Okay, so there's a few arguments. You could argue that some of these could mix and match. Some of you may put one answer for one and one answer for another. That's okay as long as it's going in the general same direction on the graph that we're going to do in a second. But for example, just to give you an example if we're looking at 20 minutes before the race, they're probably going to be sat down, chilling. Yeah, so that gives us a bit of an easy one to start off with. We're going to be looking at something that's going to be close towards their resting heart rate. So the closest one we can really see here is the 80 beats per minute. Obviously that's not going to be Jessica Ennis's resting heart rate. Hers will be a bit lower than that because she's a pro athlete, but that's probably going to be the one that's closest towards it. She's probably walking around 20 minutes before the race anyway, quite chilled. So that'll be our first figure. What you're looking to do now is to watch the video and match the rest of them up, and can you do that? Some of you who are keen-eyed might have spotted that 186 for Jessica Ennis is going to be really, really close to her maximum heart rate, and you will be absolutely right. Sometimes it can go above that 90% mark for anaerobic fitness, but I would argue that maybe should have been a bit lower, that figure. Okay. There are extensions on your task as well. Really challenge yourself, guys. You guys are top level thinkers, so really try and push yourselves, okay? Okay, so don't forget, guys, to pause the video whenever you want. I'm not going to say it all the time. You guys can work that out for yourselves, okay? What you need to do now is just get hold of a pencil, a ruler, a pen if you need to. If you've not got a pencil knocking around, it's just a blank bit of paper. If you've got some graph paper, brilliant. I don't expect many people to have that. I'm not looking for a really scientific graph drawing here. I'm just looking for you to draw out your X and your Y axis, okay? Maybe draw out some simple lines if you really feel like it, okay? But just make sure you've got your units on the side here. We're missing titles, naughty me, your maths teachers will tell me off. Okay, so on this side, it should be saying heart rate or beats per minute, okay? Or heart rate in beats per minute. And under here, it should say moment of the race. Make sure you do that, guys, so you can understand it for revision. And don't forget to keep hold of these sheets as well, okay? Just checking I'm still in shot. So what I'd like you to do now is take your heart rates that you just decided on from the video and plot them onto this graph, okay? I'm going to show you in a second what we think it'll look like, okay? But pause it, give it a go now, see how you get on. Okay, guys, welcome back. A couple of issues there, but nothing to worry about. Okay, so you should have plotted your graph now, and obviously I can't see what it looks like, but I'll show you an example from ours in a second. But just before we do that, what I'd like you to do is just to start drawing on where the training thresholds might be. So I'm just going to introduce you to this slide. If you can't see it, make sure you're looking on the sheet as well, if you can. So we're looking at some training thresholds here. So if you can see the top box there, okay, that's your anaerobic training threshold. And we're in our training zone or our training threshold for the anaerobic when we're in between 80% and 90% of our maximum heart rate. So for you guys, that's being in between 80% or 90% of 206 beats per minute, okay, for a 14-year-old, yeah? So for me, the green arrow shows a little bit differently. So my anaerobic training threshold, I'll go into it at around about 152 beats per minute. That's when I'm in my anaerobic training threshold, okay? For you young whippersnappers, you guys are looking at between 168 and 160 beats per minute, okay? For your anaerobic training threshold. At the top of your anaerobic training threshold, you guys are looking to probably about 185 beats per minute. For me, following up, it's about 171. So when I go over that, I really need to start thinking about that and training and pushing my body too hard, because you don't want to go too close to that maximum heart rate. You might do during really intense races, for example. It's quite possible, but you don't want to be going there all the time. Okay, the aerobic training threshold is between 60 and 80% of your maximum heart rate. So this is when we're using oxygen, and when we're using oxygen, our body needs a little bit more time to be able to use the oxygen to mix it with glucose to cause that aerobic respiration. Okay, So that's why our heart rate is a little lower when we're in our aerobic threshold. Okay, so for you guys, if we follow the zone up, okay, you're looking at around about where are we? Okay, about 123 beats per minute, all the way up to around about 164 beats per minute. Okay, for me, obviously, it's a little lower again. So your task is, Jessica Ennis is 30 years old, or she's not anymore, but let's say she was at the time. Okay, I want you to calculate what her anaerobic training zone is. Okay, what her aerobic training zone is, and what her maximum heart rate is. And then what I'd like you to do is get a ruler and just draw a line across from where her aerobic training zone starts, so where 60% of her maximum heart rate is, draw a line across, and then do the same for 80 and shade that in one colour if you can, or just label it if you don't have any colours, and then do the same for anaerobic, the anaerobic threshold between 80 to 90%, and then shade that different colour or label it again. Okay, if you don't understand what I mean, don't worry, there's an example on the next slide. Okay, but give that a bash first. Okay, pause the video. Okay, welcome back. We're going to move on. If you weren't sure what I meant, okay, this is what I was talking about. So you don't really need to know this too much, but there is also some that is known as the fat burning zone. It's just below your aerobic training threshold. You still obviously are respiring aerobically, but just not as much, and you don't quite improve your aerobic fitness, so your cardiovascular fitness, as much if you're below. But what the scientists suggest is this zone here, so between sort of 40 to 60% is really good for burning fat. Good little bit of extra knowledge for you, but the main ones we're going to look at are your aerobic training zone and your anaerobic training zone. And even though they're not labelled here, you'll be able to work out which one's which, hopefully. So the orange one is the aerobic training zone, and the red one is the anaerobic training zone. What you'll also see here as well is we've plotted out what we thought, how we thought the race would look in terms of her heart rate. Okay, so 20 minutes prior we said around about 80 beats per minute. Yeah, and then it's going up. So just before the gunshot, adrenaline's going a little bit. Not that we should use this as an example, but her heart rate's going to be a little bit higher. She'll have warmed up. Her heart rate's looking at around about in the aerobic training zone. And then what you'll see here is, so from 200 metres, 400 metres, and the last 100, you'll see, and it starts to give us an example of what training threshold you use when you're doing the 400 metres, when you're going that fast. And it's all based, really, the main majority of the race is based in the anaerobic training zone. Okay, so at 200 metres, she's at just under 180 beats per minute. 400 metres, she's really pushing that top of her anaerobic training threshold. Okay, and the last 100 metres, she's above it. We did argue that this could be a little bit lower, but it wouldn't surprise me if she went that high at some points. When you're really competing at the highest level in your A race, you call it, so your main race, you could really be pushing on that amount of beats per minute. Okay, and then when she's celebrating, she's slowing down, so that brings her heart rate back down again. And then at the interview afterwards for the BBC or whatever, she'll be stood still, so it's coming, you'll notice here, it's coming back down as soon as she finishes towards her resting heart rate. So this bit here is her recovery heart rate. So as soon as she stops, how fast does it take her to get from there all the way down to her resting heart rate? Okay, so obviously it's still got a little bit of a way to go here, yeah? But the steeper this gradient here on the graph, the steeper the gradient, the fitter she will be, okay? So for me, for example, I'm nowhere near as fit as Jessica Ennis, so mine would look a little bit more like this, because it would take me a little bit longer over time, okay? Someone who's fitter than Jessica Ennis, it might come down a little bit sharper than that, but I doubt many people are fitter than Jennifer Ennis, to be honest. Sorry, Jessica Ennis, not Jennifer Ennis. So if you've not got that right, just before I move on, pause the video, just rearrange it if you can, just so you've got the right notes and the right information for the future, and then join me on the next slide. Okay. Just ignore the double lines on the slide for some reason. I think there's a little bit of a mix up on the formatting. So don't worry about that, it's only supposed to be one line. Okay. Your task to finish off with, okay, is explain why the heart rate looks like it does. I've just explained through a fair bit of it, but can we really try and link it to the oxygen? Yeah, to how the body uses oxygen. And can we also maybe try and explain why we might not be using oxygen at that time, at a certain time of the race as well. So really try and explain that. Okay. And then explain when Jess is in the anaerobic threshold, okay, and then suggest why is it anaerobic as well. So that links back to what I just said as well. There's an extension task for you there. I'm not going to go through that one at the moment because I want to keep this video shorter. I'm aware my last one went on for a bit. So just going to check the last slide, okay. And obviously we would have done a peer assessment. Unfortunately we can't do that at the moment, which is gutting, but just self-assess it, go back through really quickly, give it 4 or 5 minutes just to go back through, make sure you got it right, and then jobs are good. I hope you guys are finding yourself well. I'm doing stuff from home as well now, and then I'll be in school sometimes as well. Just basically keep yourself safe, guys. Don't go out at the moment unless you have to, okay? And really try and be creative at home. Yeah, give yourself some well-being tasks. There's loads and loads of good stuff you can do online. The Joe Wicks stuff is fantastic. He does a PE lesson every morning from 9 AM. If you missed that one, he saved it to his YouTube channel. Very soon there's going to be a PE YouTube channel as well that I'm going to be saving loads of stuff to. Hopefully this video will be on there too. And don't forget, I keep saying it, the Nike Training Club app is fantastic. Yeah, it's free to use. I think you might have to put an email in. Probably most of you will have them by now. It's free to use, no obligation to buy anything at all. It's just videos for you to use and dead easy instructions. And it's really good stuff to understand circuit training and what you'll need to do as well in your coursework in year 10. Yeah, so really get a look at that, and then just do maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour exercise each day. It's really made me feel better. I've been doing stuff outside in the garden, weather's nice and sunny. It really just helps brighten your mood a little bit, because I know sometimes these times can get a little bit stressful. So exercise, we know, releases serotonin, the feel-good hormone, and it'll make you feel better. Alright, that's enough from me, guys. Hope to see you soon. Big thumbs up. See you later, guys.